So let's talk about coaching. When is coaching necessary? All right, if you hire someone lacking the experience, you are making an implicit commitment to training and coaching. If you hire somebody and they say, well, I've never done this job before, it's implied that you're going to be training and coaching. So if you look at your new hires and your new people, are you putting the time and energy? You know, we'd all love, as busy managers, just to hire somebody and say, go for it, and have them just immediately be productive, but that's kind of naive. We're making an implicit commitment to coaching when we have somebody lacking experience. We also need to coach people when you have talent that is stagnated. You know, one of the things you have to realize is that you have to coach people to success, and sometimes good people get unproductive for various reasons. One of the things that I discovered in doing executive coaching for people outside of the church, for people that have hired me, is that sometimes the problems that are keeping people from being effective in their business have nothing to do with business. They have to do with different areas. And so when I started doing some coaching, it became apparent that, you know, I also have a master's degree in counseling and I've been a pastor. And, you know, it's not counseling and it's not preaching, it's not ministerial work. But after you work with somebody every month for a while, things kind of come to the surface and say, well, we have this issue, we have that. We get that issue done, and all of a sudden, productivity begins to flow. I had one client that they were literally about to fire him. They were a large organization, and they were good at training. They had a lot of people that they worked with. And their manager, who was a friend of mine, is good at working with people. But he said, I'm going to give you this guy because he said, I've done everything I can do, and I'm going to have to let him go because he is not functioning well. And last ditch effort, we'll give him to you for a year. And I took him, and we had a great rapport. But after a while, about halfway through the year, an issue came up, not business related. But we worked on that business related, that issue, and when it was gone, his career just took off. All of a sudden, what was holding him back was gone. They ended up at the end of the year not only being happy with him, but they gave him his own branch to manage, and he's moving on to success. Because sometimes the thing that's causing an employee to stagnate needs to be addressed. You can't just ignore the fact that you have some of your people that are not functioning very well. Let me see if we still have to. Yes. I'm going to write on the board here. Every organization has A, B, and C performers, if you have a very large group. And your A performers, they're doing everything you would want them to do. They're bringing in a lot of success to your organization. They're doing a great job. The B, they're doing a pretty good job, but they're kind of in the middle. They're not really blowing the doors off. And the C people are struggling. Now, what happens is sometimes leaders in these organizations, they will ignore the C people. They don't want to deal with it. They get frustrated with it. They don't know how to help them. So what they'll end up doing is coddling the C players. Now, David Cottrell, in his great book on leadership, talks about this, and this is where I got this idea. He said, you know what happens in your organization if you coddle the C players for too long and you don't deal with them? These people leave. Your A players will leave. They're not going to stay in your organization if you're going to be a mediocre. And then you are left with this. So the best you've got to hope for is a mediocre organization. So if you're in management and leadership, you have to address the people who are stagnating. And one area you can do that is by coaching. And then, of course, when you have a diamond in the rough employee, and we've all had those. You get a new hire or somebody coming up and you see them, and you just can see in them, they've got something. They got a skill set, they got a personality, they got something that could really be something. You recognize that and you say, hey, I need to put extra time into them. I need to meet with them weekly or monthly at least for coaching. All right, types of coaching, there's 3 different types. Developmental coaching, that's what we were just talking about. Developmental coaching, preparing for broader leadership roles, expanding job skills, rapid growth. So we want to coach people when we develop. Transitional coaching, helping to find a path forward in the organization or career. Sometimes you can help people that are stagnating by getting them in a different slot. You know, if you got the wrong people in the wrong slot, they're not going to be productive. I was reading a thing by John Maxwell this morning, and he was talking about having the people in the right position. And he was using the analogy of his basketball team when he was in high school. And for those of you that play basketball, they had a pretty good basketball team, and they also had a second string. And the second string they would scrimmage against. They were okay, but obviously the first string was much better. They were the ones who played. So the coach said, let's do something different today. And he took the first string team, and he put them in different positions than they normally played. John Maxwell was a forward, and he put him in the center position. And he moved someone else in different positions. And then they played the second string team. Guess what happened? We're supposed to play to 20 points. Well, it didn't take very long because the second string team slaughtered them. Got the 20 points. And now they had better players on the first string team, but when they put the good players in the wrong positions, they weren't good. So you need to be thinking about, do I need to help this employee find a different career path? And sometimes the best thing you can do is say to someone, if you've done everything else you can do, as my friend Mike says, he says, I'm going to help you find your success somewhere else because it's obvious you're not finding it here. And that's not said ugly, but nobody's happy failing. And if you're not succeeding, I want you to stay in a position where you're failing. I'm going to help you move on. And the third thing, remedial coaching. Resolving performance issues. We got to deal with those issues. What's the best phrase you want to use? We're going to have a conversation. We need to have a conversation. And we need to have a conversation because I value this relationship too much not to have this conversation. But you cannot ignore problems. And when sometimes you have to deal with people and say, look, if they're coming in late all the time and it's affecting the team, you can't just ignore that. You've got to say, look, I care too much about you as an employee not to have this conversation. Let's talk about why you're late all the time. Remedial coaching. All right. I want you to do a coaching classic. All right, y'all ready for this? We'll see if y'all recognize this.
I show you a trick that'll get some speed in your legs. You have to wear that speed and switch weight.
Well, it brings me luck,
You know what it brings? It brings flies. Now listen, I want you to try to listen to me. I want you to try to chase this little chicken.
What would that chasing chicken for is embarrassing,
First, because I said so. And second, because chicken chasing is how we always used to train in here. You catch this thing, you can catch 3 sliding. Ready?
I'd rather eat the chicken than very mature.
Neither are you very mature. Now listen, get this thing.
Wait, come on.
Come on, go on and get it. Get it. Come on, what's the matter with you? Get it. Pick him up. Put him up. What's the matter? You're so fast. Why are you standing still or something? Speed. Can't you catch a little chicken? Huh? Move your tail. You look like a bird out there. What's the matter with you?
You're like a Kentucky Fried Idiot.
All right, so that's coaching. Now, that's kind of silly coaching, but we all know that in that movie series, the coach that he had there, his trainer, made all the difference in his career. Now, he's very strong, straightforward, but you do see some of the elements of coaching there. He's identified a problem area. He's slow. We got to get your footwork fast. He created a model to be able to deal with that, which is catching a live chicken. And then he forced him to do it. He didn't want to do it. He forced him to do it. Well, sometimes as you're coaching people, you're going to force them to do something they're not really ready or think they're ready to do. And then he exhorted him, maybe a little profanely, but he exhorted him to catch the chicken. So these are the things that coaching does for us. And we can have this same kind of success, hopefully, that Rocky would have. All right, coaching must involve a process. Improvement is not just a matter of giving out some information. Here's where we make a mistake as leaders. We think if we just tell people some information, it's all settled. That's not going to work most of the time. If that were true, then everyone who understood the importance of going on a healthy diet and exercise would be in great shape, right? It's not just information. I like to say about when I'm struggling, I talk and challenge in the church, what we know, it's like nutrition. What I know about Christianity, I know far more than I practice, right? And so the same way with nutrition. sometimes we just can't throw information at people. Sometimes you get your group together, and sometimes you do it in a group, and you say, well, we're not doing this, we're not doing this, we're not doing this, now go get it done, and you think you've accomplished your goal. You have not. Just sharing information, there has to be a process. How are we going to get from point A to point B? Okay, so this is what we need to get done. Now let me sit down and talk to you about it. If your sales are down by X number or whatever, I just don't need to say your sales are down. Let's sit down and have a conversation. How can I help you get more sales? How can I help you get more appointments? How can I do? And you're coaching them, giving them a process to move forward. Does that make sense? So you've got to have a process. Coaching involves the art of active listening. To make sure you correctly address the needs for improvement, you've got to listen to the people you're talking to. That means you've got to slow your leadership down so that you're sure what you're dealing with. You've got to allow for intuitive problem solving, the aha moments of coaching. I've been privileged the last number of years to get to do some of the exit coaching for leadership, Tyler, and it's always such an enjoyable thing when you're talking with someone, and part of what a coach does is you take this information you're getting and you're assimilating that different bits of it, and because you're a third party, look at it, and looking at it from a 40,000 foot view, you sometimes see things they don't see. And so you say something and go, wow, and they go, wow, that's really something, I never thought of that. But you can't do that if you don't slow down enough to have a good conversation, so it allows for an intuitive understanding. And then you make sure you're personalizing the coaching process. So everybody's a little bit different, right? We all respond to different things. How many of you have parents, right? Anybody? No, only one parent in the whole room. Wow, no wonder our kids wrote this down. One parent in the whole room. All right. So have you found that your children react differently to the same information? And I've got raised two daughters. They're absolutely gorgeous young women now, grown women with their own families. But when they were small, they were very, very different. Raised in the same home. One, my oldest daughter, she's very inward and quiet, and she likes to keep her feelings to herself, and she likes to deal with things kind of quietly. Her sister, exactly the opposite. She's one of those that believes that suffering should be shared. And she was having a hard time with stuff. She wanted to share it with the whole family. And she loved to talk about things from over and there. But anyway, they're very different people. Well, if your children are different, your employees are different. And you can't just one size fits all. So you want to make sure you're personalizing the coaching process. That takes time with one-on-one involvement. It also utilizes the power of asking questions. Every great coaching program, and Keith just shared me a good book about coaching. It talks about the power of asking questions. It's the secret sauce of coaching. Less talking, more asking. And this is really the discipline that's demanded of a coach. Even when you know the answer to what your coachee is dealing with, you're not supposed to just tell them. You're supposed to keep asking them questions until they come to that conclusion themselves. Because if they come to that conclusion themselves, it's going to be far more powerful in their life, and they're going to be far more likely to apply the change that is needed. So coaching questions engage the subconscious mind, and the subconscious mind is where the real power for change lies in our life. And when we ask questions, the subconscious can respond to it. So when you're coaching people, the greatest difficulty is you have to be quiet, and you have to listen. You have to ask questions. And to do that, you got to get comfortable with silence, right? Most of us are not comfortable with silence. If you ask your coachee, so you say, well, what do you think about that? And they take a couple of extra beats to answer you, you might feel like you need to step in and feel the silence. But don't do that. Give them time to process and say what they're doing. And the hardest thing to do as a coach is when you know what the individual needs to do to be more successful with whatever you're dealing with. And you just want to tell them. That's a shortcut that's counterproductive. You gotta pull back on that desire. And you gotta keep asking them questions till they see it. Keep asking them questions. And I know sometimes some of you, I've had the privilege of coaching a little, you've heard me do this, I'll go, oh, I gotta stop here because I'm talking instead of questions. I gotta stop telling you, I gotta ask you a question. Let me ask you a question. Because it's the questions that have power. So if you have someone that's a street, you don't want to start with, let me do this, that. You want to ask them some questions. How do you think things are going? Where do you think the struggle is? Why do you think that's a problem? What areas might there be that we could see some improvement? Why might this be a better way of doing it? Have you seen anybody else do it? I'll give you some questions. Here's some great questions, powerful coaching questions. If they're in your notes, I think, but if not, you might want to screenshot that. It says, here's a good one. Have you ever considered making more phone calls, or have you ever considered, something else? What do you think is going on here? Well, when there's interpersonal conflict, and you've got one employee giving the other, you don't say, you guys need to get along. Saying that, you need to say, what do you think's going on here? What do you think this is a problem? And get some feedback on that. This is my favorite question. What are you pretending not to know? What are you pretending not to know? Because we do that all the time, don't we? What are we pretending not to know? Most of the time, we know what the problem is. We just don't want to admit that that's the problem. But Robert Ringer wrote a great book called Winning Through Intimidation. And he has in there several theories in there. And one of them is the theory of reality. And what he says with the theory of reality is what reality is. And until you accept reality, you're going to continue to struggle. You can't change something working off of a falsehood. What is the reality? What are you pretending not to know? The reality is we're on a sea level event. That's the reality. Let's face that first, and then we can make some change. What are we pretending not to know? Great question. Are you hearing a certain criticism over and over? Do you think, this is when you got one of your problems, do you think there might be a kernel of truth to this criticism? I like to tell people, if one person calls you a donkey, you can ignore them. If 10 people say you're a donkey, you need to go buy a saddle. So, is there a kernel of truth to that criticism? Are we hearing the same thing over and over? I had a friend say he got fired from 3 different churches in 2 years. I said, why did you get fired? He said, well, they just didn't like strong preaching. There's a little more to it than that. 3 churches in 2 years, there's a little more to that. I think we need to look for that. All right. Ask them if you were your own supervisor, is there something you suggest that you worked on? You're trying to take them out of the personal and thinking of it. I've gone as far as, if you're coaching from behind the desk, which I don't do this, but if you still got a big executive desk, you're sitting behind it, when I'm dealing with a really serious issue, sometimes I would actually get up and ask them to sit in my seat. And I'd sit on the other side of the desk, in the visitor seat, and I'd say, now, if you were sitting in this seat, what would you do? Because sometimes they know what you need to do. They know what they need to do. They're just pretending not to know. Is there any area where you're hesitating to act because it might cost you personally? This is a good question to ask yourself as a CEO and executive. Because, when you're on the top of the organization, if you have a problem that you're not dealing with because you just don't want to face it, you're defrauding that organization. You're at the top of the food chain. You're the only one who can make that decision. I had to make a decision 25 years ago, or whatever, about a position in our church. It was very painful to make that position. But there was a lot of criticism, and it was holding the church back. I didn't want to make it because I was friends with the family. I had to let this person go, and I didn't want to do it. And the thing that finally set me free to make that decision was one of my mentors said to me was, you're the only one who can make that decision. And if you don't make that change, the organization is going to continue to struggle, and you are defrauding that organization. They pay you to make the hard decisions. If you're not going to make them, then don't take the money. you're defrauding the organization. You've got to do this tough stuff, which means, are you afraid to act because you're hesitating? Might it cost you personally? That's not good leadership. All right, key concepts for successful coaching: endeavoring to match goals with coachees' values and interests. Regardless of the coachee's goals, successful outcomes more often result from goals congruent with the coachee's values. Get deeper than goals. Get down to their values. Sometimes you can challenge people. They might argue over the goals. They might think the goal is too hard. What about the value? What kind of value do you have about honesty? What kind of value do you have about teamwork? What kind of value do you have about performance? Get into the level of value. Sometimes you can move somebody off dead center of that. Of course, you got to work to build a rapport before pushing too hard. Sometimes we start to, and this is why the coaching process is so good, because it might take you 6 months or 6 meetings or whatever, but if you do it the first time, it might not be effective. It might take some time to build some rapport. Because of the old saying, the old saying, people don't know, they don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And so putting a little time to kind of build some rapport so that they know who you are and what you're doing. It's what I love about my leadership classes is about there's 9 classes we meet once a month. But about the 5th class in, we start to build rapport. We start to build this real connection as a group. And boy, it gets really interesting after that because people start feeling a part. So give it time to do that. Role playing can help prepare for difficult conversations. I've done that with people that say, well, I've got to go and ask for a raise. I think the last one was somebody was asking for a raise. And it was a difficult conversation. I said, okay, let's play this out. I'm going to pretend to be your employer. You talk to me the same way you would him or her, whatever it was. And then I just try to give the answers and give her a chance to back and forth. Anyway, she got the raise. It turned out well. Lasting improvement comes through creating a plan. Before they leave that session, what's the plan? What are we going to do? What's the process? And then demanding accountability. This is where coaching gets powerful. We're going to be meeting next month, coachee, and we're going to discuss, did you do this? Did you get this done? This is where change takes place. And systemic follow-up. Many of you have professional trainers or coaches, and why do you get more done in that situation? Because you're paying them for one, so you got an investment. But secondly, you got to report to them. You got to come back and show how you're doing it. Did you follow the nutrition plan? Did you get in the cardio? Did you get? And when you do that, you make more progress because you have accountability. It's amazing to me that I have found that even the most highly motivated individuals do better when someone's holding them accountable. I don't coach. People don't pay for coaching if they're not already motivated. People don't get sent to coaching if the company doesn't believe in them. So these are quality people. These are lawyers, doctors, executives. And yet even those kind of people do better when they have to come back in next month and report, how did you do? How did you do? All right, breakthrough techniques in coaching, affirmation, giving praise that may be overlooked or long overdue. Assimilation, putting together key ideas from various events that may be evading the person you're trying to coach. And association, coming alongside to provide the support they need to tackle difficult tasks. It means something to that person to know that they've got a coach who's waiting to hear how did it go, and I want to cheer you on in this process. But this affirmation is so powerful. I had a coaching situation. I never will forget this. There was a young lady, it was leadership Tyler, incredible person, just all kinds of levels of success. So she's sitting in this, and we're talking about what she's going to do next, and she's talking about some of the challenges she's facing, and she says to me, I just want to be successful. I just want to be a success. And I said, girl, what are you talking about? I said, and I started going through the list. You went through this, you had this family situation, you overcame that, you overcame a terrible schooling process. You didn't make the team. You dedicated yourself to come back, worked hard all year, came back, made the team the next year. You got a high level degree from a university. You got into your first industry. You've been promoted at every job you've ever had. You've been given this, you've been given this. And here's my question. How much success do you have to have? You are already successful. And when I said that, she broke down in tears. She started weeping. I was shocked. I thought, wow. And she said, I'm sorry, I just never had anybody say that to me before. How much success? I mean, what are you talking about? You've knocked the ball out of the park on everything you've done. You are a success. We need to do that. And coach, you can do that for people. You can give them affirmation, praise. In fact, sometimes I'll add it to my coaching. I'll say, can I affirm you? And I just go to the list of things I find outstanding about that person. You know, I think this is good, this is good, this is good, you're great at this. We need to hear that. All right, give you 3 coaching models and we'll be done. Number 1, how many are familiar with the SWOT analysis? Some of you probably do it for strategic planning. It can also be done as personal coaching. SWOT stands for strength, opportunity, weakness, and threats. So you sit down with your person and you say, okay, let's list your strengths. What are your strengths? And then we list your weaknesses. What are your weaknesses? And then we list the opportunities that are in front of you. What opportunities do you see in front of you? And then we list the threats. What are the dangers to your career? What are the dangers to your business? What are the dangers facing your family? And then out of the strengths, opportunities, weakness, and threats, we come up with the top 8 things we're going to work on. Let's choose some of those strengths or some of those weaknesses or some of those threats or some of those up, and we're going to work off those things. It's a great little simplistic coaching model. But it'll get you going with them, and you can do it right from the very beginning. Any questions? Okay, John Maxwell has a coaching session that he does. He uses a preparation form. Basically, he asks them to email them before they start. What is the subject I want to discuss? What do I want to achieve from this session? What action did I take since our last session? Or my wins or challenges? What do I want to be held accountable for? What else would make this session most productive in moving in the direction of goals and objectives? Great little coaching model, very simple. You can do it every time with different people, so screenshot that if it's not in your notes and do it and go from there. So that's his preparation for it. And then those are the other 2 questions. All right, very simple model. There's so many models out there. These are just a couple. Anybody else? Any questions on this one? All right, this is mine. Here's what I call accountability management. Some of you have had the privilege of coaching through this. What are the top things? I sit down with people and I say, what are the top 5 things you need to be doing to be successful at your work? First of all, do you know what those 5 things are? You'd be surprised how many people don't know. The top things they need to be doing to be successful. Okay, but if you do know what they are, you know the top 5 things, are you doing them consistently? And if not, would it be helpful to have someone come alongside you and make sure you got them done? So out of that, we come up out of those top 5 things and we start listing what they are. Usually they line up under these 3 big quadrants. You have leadership skills, people skills, personal disciplines. Whatever their answers are, they'll probably line up in that. And based on those things, I design a coaching system which involves books to read, podcasts to listen to, and what I'll have done by the next meeting. So every meeting we meet is, okay, what are the things you're going to have done by the time we get together next month? And then they come back and report on that. So that's my system, accountability management. Any questions on that? Okay, so here we got, walking alongside somebody is what coaching is. Get out there, get along with somebody, take them through the process. It can be highly rewarding, transformational in people's lives. I've had the privilege to have several great coaches in my life. I have a coach that several years ago named Sandy Shishel. I paid for his coaching, which at the time scared me to death what I paid for that coaching. Not so much money now, but at the time it seemed like a lot of money. But I wanted to get, and you know what? I made a huge amount of progress on that goal because I had paid the money. And he was very good at really drawing me to it. And then I have a regular coach that I meet with every month or often, not necessarily every month, because I want this person, she's incredibly bright, very knowledgeable. I want her to ask me questions and she skewers me with her questions sometimes. I mean, I know, I wasn't ready for that one. But it moves me forward in what I'm doing. You guys know who Tiger Woods is, right? Great golfer, and he's kind of gone through a difficulty in his career, but he's still, without doubt, one of the greatest golfers in American history. You know that in his prime, this is a guy that's literally earning $100 million a year in endorsements and winning all these tournaments. Do you know that he paid for a coach that coached him every single day?
Wow.
Now you're making that kind of money and you're at that level of success, but he still pays for a coach. That's why I still pay for a coach. Because coaching will take you to higher levels of success than you'll get on your own. Anyway, any questions on coaching? I'm done with my presentation. You have a question? Nobody? Rochelle?
Do you have something that shows all of your information so that if we are interested in...
It's on the last sheet of the
Okay.
handout. It's got this one that has this one, it's the blue one. You should have it, it's the two-sided, so it's on the back side. It's got my email address, my phone number, and you can follow me on Facebook, Kim Beckham Leadership Coaching. Yes. All right?
I have one question. This is like, I don't even know if it's really a question worth asking, not me personally, but on the SWOT, the threat, what would be a threat?
Okay, so how many of you have done this in your organization? Okay, so in the organization it's a little clearer. So oftentimes in an organization, we will use the strengths, they're internal. Opportunities are external. So weaknesses would be internal, and threats would be external.
Thank you. That explains it. Thank you.
Yeah, good question. Very good question.
That can be,
There's never a bad question.
we've done SWOT here both as a group and as individuals, and a threat could be economy going south. It could be your competitors doing something you're not doing to get a leg up above you, and how are you going to take advantage or not take advantage of them. So it could be a whole lot of things.
It could be technology in your particular position that you're getting behind on, and so other people are there to fill.
Which is big.
Yeah.
Any other questions for Kim? Oh, Keith.
Hey,
I've got one, you and I talked about this the other day. One of the biggest challenges working with people is trying to lead them to the answer, because if you tell them what to do, they're not going to do it, most likely. But if you help them come to the realization that they need to make this change, they're going to be engaged and do it. How do you get people, that's one of my biggest challenges, get people to do the obvious, I'm going to fix it for them or tell them what to do. How do you deal with that? It's like change behavior.
yes.
It's hard.
Well, you just have to force yourself to be patient enough to keep asking the questions till they get it themselves. I guess I will say that sometimes I've given up, and because I'm tired of asking the questions, and so I'll ask a leading question and says, well, what do you think if we were to just put in more time or something like, but that's weaker than them coming to it on their own. But yeah, that's art, not a science.
Yeah,
I wish I could
it's
give you a
art.
clear answer to that. It gets back to that intuitive thing and what you knowing the individual, you knowing yourself, and then what hopefully you get that blast of the insight, which I don't always get. But if we get it, we can give them that answer. Yes, Michelle?
One thing that we do a lot of here is we do all different kinds of personality assessments. There's so many different kinds out there, because it's really important that your staff is self-aware, and that might help them. You might do that with some of your clients. That might help them come to, because you got it's like a third party. The one that we do is like, it's 40 pages long. And it sounds very lengthy, but at the, on one page of it, it talks about, I mean, it's very straight up front about what your weaknesses might be, how other people perceive you. You know, so these things might be helpful in helping them come up. It's just resources to help them come up with what the issues might be without you having to tell them.
There's so many wonderful tools out there in personal assessment and workplace assessment, whether it's DISC or Myers-Briggs and all kinds of stuff. But yeah, it's good stuff. I like the 360 evaluation. If any of you have ever done the 360 evaluation where you give email addresses to this organization, they get sent a questionnaire about you, and they answer questions about you, and then it's compiled anonymously, and you get the results, but you don't know who said what. But you get a 360 evaluation of who you are and how you're doing in your career. It's a good program. Yes, Keith?
I like one of the questions, or one of the questions you had were, if they were in your desk or your position, and you asked them, what would you do if you were the boss, and what would you have them do different? How would you respond to the situation? So that reverse role play.
If you can get them out of their own defensive mode, because you know when you're talking to them, everybody's naturally defensive, but that shifts the thinking so that they're thinking about concepts rather than personal. Good.
Any other questions? So every time we have a class, I always try to come up here and tell you what I took away, right? One key point that I took away, which would be, first of all, the affirmation thing is real. Sometimes people just need to hear you're doing a good job.
Yeah.
We have some guys here do an amazing job. And every once in a while, I just have to stop and say, you did a badass job today, thank you. And that's all I need. And then they're good to go. Like sometimes that's all it takes. I don't, do I need it? Yeah. Do I need it every day? Not so much, but sure, every once in a while it's like, hey, great job. The second thing is I would highly recommend this. Michelle and I did one on myself, I guess, 2 or 3 years ago. And one of my weaknesses was trying to be the smartest person in the room at all times, which clearly you should not be. And she recommended I take a class with Kim, and I did. Where I was not the smartest guy in the room, I was not the most successful or accomplished or however you want to say it.
I wanted you to be the smallest.
Smaller. Well, that was physically going to be impossible. But that was the key, was try not to make yourself bigger than everybody around. And so the SWOT thing is real. We've done it as a group. Threats, economics, other organizations like ours, what are they offering that we're not, etc. So I would highly, this on a personal and business level, macro level is very good too. So that's what I took away. Now, let's give away some books.
Hang on, I gotta put my card in there.
Oh, all right.
I'm late to the party, we're late to the
Oh, we
party.
got Okay, toss me. You want to draw?
Rochelle, put it over there for me.
Any cards, come on, come on.
All right. All right, first one we're going to draw for is this one, Hidden Dangers, Combative Threats to Healthy Relationships. Said Mr. Kim gave a presentation on this a couple of years ago. It's very good. So, let's see if I can. Close your eyes and draw.
All right.
Close your eyes and draw.
I'm trying to make sure I find the ball. All right, this is
Rio.
Blanco,
Which one?
Roofing, and Eric.
Eric.
See, you're welcome.
What did you pay, is it?
Rio Blanco saturated the bowl here.
Yeah.
We want the book.
All right, the second one. We kind of said earlier. It's called Letters from the Heart, How to Say the Things That Matter Most to Those Who Mean the Most to You. It's a mouthful, but I've gone through it twice now, so that's good. Keith, close your eyes. Draw it. Oh, you can't do that. You can't win yourself. Hold on there. Cheating. Oh, okay, we got a Kelly card. Where's Audrey? There we go, Miss Audrey.
Thank you. Put my card in.
There you go. Well, folks, and also, if you are interested in books, Kim has brought some books today. He will help you out.
Discount price. Oh, that's all
I
right.
touched the podium, which means
Look, I'm on.
it happens. It's very sensitive. Other than that, we are done for the day. It's right on time for us to get out of here. If y'all ever have any questions, concerns, you need help with anything as a accredited business or not, we are always here for you. Michelle's got a point to make on the side.
We do, if you're a new accredited business, or if you want to learn more about how to make your accreditation work for you, We are doing an orientation on April
26th.
26th. We are not sure if we're doing it breakfast, lunch, or afternoon.
Preferably not breakfast, I'm not really.
So we are sending out an
Yes,
email
ma'am.
to everybody. So just let us know which time is best for you. Food will be included depending on what time of day it is, but we will include food.
Correct. Now, everyone, obviously, you are welcome to come to that, everyone's who here. But we are targeting mainly those that have joined within the last 6 to 8 months, how to maximize your accreditation with BBB, how to take advantage of the things that we have to offer. It will go on the calendar by the end of this week. There will be all the typical marketing email and all that stuff will go out as well. But you are welcome to join us as a long time AB or a short time. You are more than welcome to join us. But yes, that's on April 26th. That's a Tuesday, April 26th. And we're just going to take composite poll results. If more people say afternoon, we'll do afternoon. If more people say morning, we'll do morning. It's just, majority wins. So other than that, if y'all don't have any questions or concerns, we appreciate you being here. I too have a giveaway. And it is bottles of vinegar and oil. That's here's a Mike's canvas.
He's so silly.
So feel free to take that. That one's spilled. That's great. So other than that, folks, we appreciate you. You y'all kick the doors up. It's cold. Appreciate y'all. Thank y'all. Kim's here if you have any questions. Or myself and Michelle.